How do we go through difficulties in life or at work, in relationship, facing a health problem or financial problem? There are many occasions that we feel very pressured. And I have been talking about how we face the inevitables or face death, or I even talked about the heart and body like a two different universe. And we have a different structure in us to kind of massage or fit together or synthesize it so we can be a whole being instead of scattered being. I also talked about me and mini-me or mini-mini-me, that we have different elements or reference points in us. So it's like a neural network in us that we may put some emphasis in certain area at one point and the other area in the other point. But as the environment changes continuously, and as we may change ourselves continuously because we go through experiences and the lessons learned or not learned, that's the problem. So in this video, I like to talk about some specific examples that I have gone through and reflecting on that and how I deal with them, how I dealt with them. As a child, just in a general sense, all the kids go through difficulties in life. You know, they cannot walk, they get upset, they do something and punished by their parents. And all that process would put them into some kind of a learning process, which they may or may not realize at all. But they become who they are. They develop a personality and habit, attitude, behavior, and that would put them into the situation where they may do well in certain area, but may not do well in other area, which is okay because we cannot do everything. So life is something that we have to understand where we feel good and make sense and want to do our best while we connect to others so that we are not just living in the vacuum, but in the society to make some impact while we may find happiness in the process. So again, the work, relationship, hobby, finance issues, health issues, those are the points that I mentioned in life profile, including the most important one being truthful and sincere in what we do. So examples again. I came up with like a 3-4 examples that I can talk about. It's an interesting case because I have been doing this black dot exercise, which is like going through the meditation. Every day I monitored and I reflected in the day what happened. And I have a thick paper of all the, like a journal, but basically talking about the time I meditated and how I found the day. And when I didn't feel good and I had some emotional ups and downs or something, then I put the black dot. In many years after, especially the going through the meditation like Vipassana and continue doing it, probably 15 years since age 50 when I started to do this exercise, black dot exercise and the life profile, journey. And I had a very peaceful period and not many black dots, and life was very quiet and things are going well. Then I went through a little divorce, not a little divorce, it's a big divorce perhaps, because I felt that the passage I'm going is not quite fit to the passage that my partner at the time wanted. So after that, well, actually, at the point I thought I may go into the hell to figure out, because peaceful life without many dots, black dots, is one. But I thought I need to explore again back into the world and see what's going on, as if to check how I'm behaving. Also, one of the ideas of Bodhisattva is to go to the world. And when people suffer, you suffer with them to figure out what to do. And I like that spirit. And my work as management consultant, I think I have gone through the same kind of a process of relating to the people's problem and figure out in a mini company idea, looking at the organization as opposed to mini me's, there's a mini companies within the company, and each of them do their best. And there's often a silo or blockage or misunderstanding of communication, lack of transparency. Those things happen. The situation for the company organization is similar to the individual because one reflects to the other. And we want to streamline the process, be the master of our destiny, and collectively we want to achieve what we can. The meaning of our life is to do that, as far as I can tell. Now, talking about my divorce and after, one of the incidents that happened, this happened probably 5 years ago. I was told by a doctor saying that I'm pre-diabetic and I have to kind of pick my finger, to get the blood and sample it and monitor every day. And I was depressed and upset, and because I didn't want to do that. So as I was told, I studied, what this diabetes is. And it took about a day and a half to figure out, because I spent lots of time looking into what diabetes is, why it happens. And most of it is related to the life profile, life pattern, what kind of things that we eat and how we spend our time. And I thought, wow, this is tough because, out of the, supermarket area, if I change my eating habit, that means almost like excluding. I cannot go to 80%, even more area of the supermarket to pick up food and so that I can live according to what the doctor says I should. But after a day and a half, I opened up my mind. Okay, this is an interesting thing that I have to change my lifestyle, the habitual pattern. But since, in my case, I have gone through the meditation for 10 days, things of that nature, and going through maybe 12 times, 13 times by that time, I realized that, okay, this is like going back to the monk life, simple life and calm and quiet mind. And that fit to this prescription of how I should live in the diabetic situation. So I changed my whole diet and more conscious about living. And I made that decision within 2 days. And that point was quite interesting because it was certainly a black dot moment in my life. But I resolved and I committed to move forward with a positive attitude. So that's one case of dealing with some kind of emotional ups and downs, suffering, or you may call it delusion. Why can I not eat pizza anymore? Why cannot I eat the white bread? What about the white rice? What about the sushi with rice? Those things are not possible. But I committed, okay, this is a moment for me to change. I was, I think, 50, maybe 60 some years old at the time. So that's one incident that the insight that I came up and I found the way forward was more positive, and that was a good case. Another case I can think of just recently, in the last few weeks, I went through some difficulties. One was the case of applying for visa in New Zealand, and in the process you have to get the fingerprint for the FBI criminal check so that I am found as not, the bad person. So to do that, I have to go to a place where they do the fingerprint. And it turned out there was rain and the road blocked and so forth, so I had struggled. And I couldn't make it the first time. So I decided I have to do this because the timing is important. So I even went like a day and a half earlier, and I went to the town of Auckland early in the morning, leaving like 4:30, so that I can avoid the traffic, and I'll be there at the Japanese consulate to do some paperwork. And then I have to go to the other place to get the fingerprint and bring that back and so forth. So it was kind of a hectic, but I committed myself going through that. But FBI fingerprint check is another thing that I did in the process, not just for the Japanese, because I lived in the States for quite a bit of time, more the time than I lived in Japan. So I was to send the letter, including this fingerprint, to FBI. And I did it in the local post office. And it's a small village, and sadness, suffering, all along with it, delusion. What is this life about? So there's a positive, there's a negative. And we don't need to focus on too much on the extreme, but we want to navigate our life, finding the passage, eliminating the extreme way of responding, and figuring out. So it's like a synthesizing of all the elements and references that we have accumulated over time in us. And we want to have access to that within our brain and also even from our unconsciousness. When I talk about the brain and heart, the brain is more of a conscious, heart is more of an unconscious. We may take things for granted about the fact that we live, because if there's a delay, I can still go to Auckland or wherever and get the fingerprint and mail it and get the result back, especially when we face the difficulty. When we do something, let's talk about the specific example. Like I was thinking, in a kitchen, I can't find something, for example. And then where is it? At the time, you kind of empty your mind because what you're thinking doesn't work. And what you thought is happening, it's not happening. It's not there. So, wait a minute, what's going on? In that moment, you have the void, empty-minded, and openness to access to the memory. Well, let me think about it. I remember that. So there's a memory that pops up from the past in that instance. So that's one example. And that's an easy example because you just forgot something which just happened a few days ago. But the same process can happen from deeper, accessing the deeper part of our memory. And when it happens, that's when you have a calm and quiet mind. The body is relaxed and not pushing. And the mind and body is sort of like liberated, being in the now. Maybe you feel the sensation within the body, or listen to the bird chirping, or the light around you. And when you have that, that's when you can go deeper and deeper into your unconsciousness, so to speak. And then what's happening in us, as I mentioned about two different parallel worlds or two parallel universes of brain and heart, those differentiation actually has some connection in between. And what we are looking for is like a conscious to unconscious, brain to heart, or the muscle memory, whatever the memory down deep. We can excavate, so to speak, when the need is there. So memory from the short time ago is one, but the memory from long time ago takes more time and calm and quiet mind. But that's part of the process we have to go through. And the difference between the short memory and what to do with it, to the two-day example of the diabetic or the pre-diabetes, by the way, I have been doing just fine after that, or any other situation, facing death or how to live, what's the meaning of life and how we'll be happy about it. Each of them have different process, but the concept-wise, you can go either shallow part of the memory or deeper part of the memory, or the brain is starting to connect with or being able to listen to the heart from down below, where lots of memories and learning have taken place. Some are positive, some are negative, some are worthwhile, some are not. But we have that capability as living being to do that. It cannot be done by pushing the brain. We have to let go of inevitable, like facing death, or when the meal is gone, it's too late. So you may use the rational mind, and if you run out of it, you go through into your deeper mind, or you may go to the deeper mind and come back to the rational mind, kind of like to figure out the best combination to come up with the idea. So that process is called Shila Samadhi Panya, good conduct. Samadhi is a calm and quiet mind, and the Panya is the wisdom. Whether it's a short-term memory or long-term issues of life, or anywhere in between, I think we can practice this. And this is the case, the importance of this execution and the changing habitual pattern. Because we want to not understand the brain, but being able to access the potentiality that we have in us in each specific case in life. And as we move on, we accumulate those learnings. And we can go into the negativity of the learning if we emphasize that and develop the bad habit, or we can have a choice of being positive about how to deal with it by having a good learning process and experience you had. So the black dot exercise I mentioned about, or the life profile I mentioned in the other video, would be a way to do it. But these are just an idea and the concept. The important part is execution. Things change, I change. I have to keep working on it. There are lots of surprises and the learning. And hopefully we continue this passage positively with some level of determination or conviction. This is the way that we can learn, and you can reflect back, understand, and have a smile. Maybe some sad examples, but you have gone through that. And then be positive about what you can do, connecting the brain and heart, the consciousness and unconsciousness. Some may take more time than others. That's okay, because we are a living being, and for something to be processed, it just doesn't happen in the computer, like in the computer. It may take some unusual pattern of hormone or nerve system or some stimulation from the hand or neck, whatever. We don't know that. But that's the whole entity that we need to look at, not just utilizing one. And even various disciplines, that may contradict with each other, but we may find something in common out of that process of samadhi, with calm and quiet mind. Hopefully, step by step, we practice, we learn the lesson of life and find the meaning of it, and be strong, somewhat determined, committed to keep on living the best we can, truthfully and sincerely. Thank you.